Now, President Joe Biden's administration is feeling the heat after a lawsuit was launched this week seeking to halt directives that extend federal sex discrimination protections ranging from transgender girls participating in school sports to the use of school and workplace bathrooms that align with a person's gender identity. I'm joined by co-founder of Save Women's Sport Australasia, Catherine Devers. Catherine, thank you for joining us tonight. 3,000 US medical professionals are currently suing the Biden administration over their gender identity mandate, which aims to redefine sex essentially. What could this gender identity mandate mean for medical practitioners?
So what happens is the medical practitioners are expected to instantly affirm the children that come into their care. And what this means is that they are pushed onto a medicalised pathway where they are given puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and eventually ending up in extreme body modification surgeries. And all of these steps, from puberty blockers through to the surgeries, are irreversible. Now, we know that once we put children on this pathway, that the rates of self-harm and suicide do go up. And long-term, there's evidence out of the Karolinska Institute that rates of suicide are 20 times higher than the rest of the population. So to ask doctors to provide care that leads to these outcomes is absolutely unethical and unlawful.
Well, that's also happening to a smaller extent, you would say, in Australia, because we have got these clinics designed for children in a number of capital cities, and you're having children from a very young age receiving hormones. You've got a push to have girls under 17 to get double mastectomies. Is this happening in Australia? We're just not as aware of this phenomenon in the medical profession?
It's absolutely happening here in Australia, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of children on this medicalised pathway. For instance, last year we know that 8,000 girls under the age of 18 had their breasts removed. We know that that is happening here in Australia as well.
Wow, so those stats are for overseas, obviously, that those thousands don't reflect here, but that those sort of surgeries are also happening in Australia. That's incredible. Now, also
Yes.
in Australia, Queensland Police have recently celebrated Wear It Purple Day to demonstrate to the LGBTQIA community that they are supportive. Queensland Police members wore purple shoelaces as well as ribbons and patches to show their support. But is there a downside to this activism, Catherine?
Look, absolutely. I spoke at length with a police officer from Queensland last weekend and about their concerns about how this gender identity ideology is being embedded into our society. So Wear It Purple Day is just another example of how they're trying to get it into our schools, workplaces and institutions. Last year, 750 organisations participated. They talk about queering of spaces. They target our children. 600,000 children around Australia were sent packs from Wear It Purple Day. They target children from the age of 6 upwards. And this is a very dangerous ideology that, as I mentioned before, can end up with children being medicalised. It destroys women's rights by removing our boundaries, and it causes physical and emotional harm to children. I mean, it's glamorising extreme body modification. If you go to the Wear It Purple website, there is a testimony from a young girl who has removed her breasts and has photos of herself post-operative on that website. So when we see our police forces who have a code of conduct where they are supposed to be impartial, unbiased, and not and properly use public funds, and when they're paying to be involved in these sorts of strategies to embed gender identity ideology, it's deeply concerning. Absolutely.
So it's very much a political and a contentious area, you could argue. And what business do the police have getting involved in that sort of activism? And that sort of activism is even more advanced in the UK. North Wales Police has officers whose role is to support young people struggling with their gender identity or sexuality. One of their officers said in an article, "We'll keep talking about diversity until we don't need to talk about diversity anymore. We just need to change people's perceptions of what's normal and what's different, and until we're all integrated." Again, I mean, that's fine, but how is that in any way something that the police force should be involved in? If an individual wants to get involved in that sort of activism, then good luck to you. But to be doing that in a police uniform sends a completely different message. Now, there's a parliamentary petition to save women's sport. I know you're involved with this. You've got 24 hours to get 5,000 signatures. You're calling on the Australian Parliament to protect women's sport for biological females. Just tell us quickly about what this fight is and why we need to protect women's sport.
Well, sport is just one manifestation of how gender identity ideology is being embedded into our society. And this is where we have sports organisations who are seeking to destroy the category of sex for sports competitions and replace it with that of gender identity. So we're calling on our parliamentarians to protect women's sports. So we invite everyone to go to our website. There's a link to the Australian Parliament House e-petition, and invite every Australian who's concerned about this to please sign. And further to that, if you're interested in this area, come and find us at the Coalition for Biological Reality. There's a lot of resources there. There's a lot of information, and we really need to start pushing back on what this ideology is doing to our society.
Catherine, thank you so much for your time. You speak so eloquently on this issue, and it takes great courage to speak about this issue.
Thanks, Rita. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.